Dr. Wilson, thank you for your stellar career and your willingness to take this on. I have two quick questions today. I grew up in Warner Robins Air Force Base, and I'm very proud that that base has morphed over time from being a SAC base, MAC base, and today is a major depot for the U.S. Air Force. But at a time when we have the smallest and oldest Air Force, I'm very concerned. General Levy is in charge of the Air Force supply chain. Great general, lieutenant general, and has a stellar career of his own. But he's been educating me about the difficulties of bringing half the employment of the Air Force are civilians, as you just mentioned. And yet it takes 148 days, according to General Levy, because of Air Force rules, to onboard a new employee. And at a time when we're competing with cyber talent, mechanics, engineers, scientists, programmers, and so forth, as we talked privately, I'm very concerned that we're not competitive in trying to reach out and retain and attract the best and the brightest for the Air Force in these civilian jobs. So can you address how you would prioritize that if you're confirmed?
Senator, there are a lot of rules and regulations that sometimes, they're trying to prevent us from doing bad things, but they keep us from doing good things. And I think we need, obviously, there are rules and regulations that are there for a reason. We all want to drive on the right side of the road in the morning and have everybody else do the same thing. But sometimes, and you've just identified one, if it's that hard to hire someone, talent's going to be taken out from under you. And so I'd be happy to take a look at those kinds of things. And if there are particularly priority regulations that others have identified that need to be looked at, I'm very open to what those should be.
Well, personally, given that, as one example, 2/3 of our F-18s are not airworthy today, this is a all-hands-on-deck issue. Would you pledge to work with the committee and bring us those ideas to break through those regulations that we can help with to become more competitive?
Senator, I would, and I'd ask you to do so and help me.
Absolutely. You have it. The second thing, and I want to talk about something we don't talk much about here in that space. Vice Chief of the Air Force, General Wilson, provided written testimony recently at one of our last subcommittee hearings on readiness that, quote, "In the not-too-distant future, our potential adversaries will have the capability to hold all of our military space capabilities at risk." Dr. Wilson, those are strong words. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with those words? And how would you propose to make changes in the national security space policy and programs if you're confirmed?
Senator, one of the things I'm most looking forward to about this job is being potentially the senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense with respect to space and chairing the Defense Space Council. There is no question that space will be a contested domain in any future conflict. And I was actually serving on the House Intelligence Committee at the time the Chinese successfully launched an anti-satellite weapon, and I don't expect that things have slowed down since then. There are a variety of things I think we need to do. There are launch issues we're going to have to deal with, but I think rethinking the way in which we think about space as a contested domain has to be part of it. It's the development of strategies and techniques and capabilities to be able to fight through, to be resilient, to be as crafty and as successful in space as we are in air. And that's a very big change for the country to be starting to think that way. I think there are some elements of the Air Force that already are starting to develop those thoughts. I look forward to working with them and, of course, our national partners and partners in other agencies.
Thank you. The last question I have is, at the very time that you're considering this responsibility and we're considering your confirmation, it looks to me like all the major platforms of the Air Force are maturing to the end of their expected lives and beyond at the same time. And at the very time that they're expiring, the ramp up of new programs to replace them through delays in regulations and whatever, funding, we're building a gap, and it's a significant gap. The B-21, KC-46, the F-35, the JSTAR platform, all of these have projected gaps in capability between the time that the existing platform rolls out and expires and the new platforms are available. Have you had a chance to look at that yet, and would you pledge to us to help educate us about that growing gap in the Air Force?
Senator, when we talk about what is the risk, or the Air Force talks about what's the risk of things like the Budget Control Act, that's a very good example of one.
But it's bigger than that. I'm sorry, Dr. Wilson. It's actually bigger than that. This is a multi-year issue. It has to do with our debt position, the fact that we will not face up to our irresponsibility as Congress and how we spend money. And we're not fulfilling one of the major responsibilities we have as a unified government, and that's to defend the country. So I welcome your input, and I pledge to you our support. I'm out of time, but I would love to work with you to make sure we fill that gap that's very concerning.
Yes, sir.
And I fully expect your confirmation, and thank you again for being willing to do this.